When the National AI Office was set up, we focused strongly in six main sectors: agriculture, transportation, public sector, education, SME, and healthcare.
Malaysia is part of ASEAN, which is the Association of Southeast Asian Countries. What does that ASEAN AI Safety Network, what is it going to do, and what are some governance structures within ASEAN?
The ASEAN is driven by the Ministry of Digital here in Malaysia, and this was actually set up via a feasibility study conducted by the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, the Malaysia chapter under My Digital Corporation, an agency under the Ministry of Digital. Public sector has access Gen AI tools. Right now, the 1.4 million public sector have day-to-day access to high-end generative AI tools, which means that they are able to perform policy making, save time in the repetitive administrative tasks, and this goes across many sectors of the government.
Welcome to the Regulating AI podcast, where we connect the world's most important voices in AI governance to shape a future for AI that is fair, democratic, and innovation ready. My guest today has one of the most extraordinary origin stories in AI governance. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sam Majid. Sam, it's a pleasure to have you at our podcast.
It's a pleasure being here, Sanjay.
Wonderful. Sam, we have a global audience. Our audience is made up of policy leaders, in some cases, national architects like you, entrepreneurs in AI, all fascinated or all building the future of AI together. So, for them, we are going to just delve a little bit deeper into what your office is doing, what Malaysia is doing, and the role it plays in the AI ecosystem. But let's start with what I said is your beginning. You, in your LinkedIn, say, I reconstruct organizations in the next 21st century. But before NIO, before the highways and the toll system, you were literally mapping oyster farms on New South Wales. What did that experience of working with spatial geographic data teach you that most AI policy leaders don't simply have?
Thank you, Sanjay, for looking up my LinkedIn profile. And I have to say, perhaps maybe that exposure at the oyster farms and in the outback of Australia has taught me a lot about location intelligence. And today we are in the world of artificial intelligence, and we can't run away from having enough data to form what intelligence should be. So I started early by understanding that there were many things in the geospatial space that needed more context and intelligence. And one of my jobs when I was in back in university was mapping out oyster farms and eating tons of oysters as I went by.
So location data becomes very, very important, Sam. Sam, for our audience that does not really have a great understanding of Malaysia's role in the big ecosystem of AI, can you just talk a little bit about the ecosystem in Malaysia, as well as talk a little bit about what NIO is and what is NIO's plan and what does it really mean?
NIO stands for the National AI Office, and it's an agency set up on the 12th of December 2024 under the Ministry of Digital in Malaysia. It was a exciting formation because it was literally a setting up a startup enterprise or startup entity within government. Our main focus was to make sure that Malaysia has a focal point in terms of policy, governance, and adoption of AI.
Sam described 2025 as the foundation year and this year as the execution year. Explain that and what are some of the hard choices for this? This is for, let's say, your peers who are building national AI policies around in different countries. What should they be looking at in terms of the foundation of putting together an AI policy for the country?
I would say that many people assume the hardest challenge in year one which is your foundational year, would be technology or funding. But in reality, here in Malaysia, it is more about coordination and clarity of roles. Malaysia's AI ecosystem spans multiple ministries, agencies, regulators, academia, and industry players, each with different mandates and priorities. So, as the National AI Office, the focus during foundational year was not to redesign institutions, but to align stakeholders, avoid duplication, and create a coherent national direction that could actually be executed. Some larger institutional initiatives, such as the AI Safety Institute and the AI Governance Bill, are bigger or the broader whole of government efforts led at the ministerial level. Although NIO works closely to support and operationalize this agenda within Malaysia.
Also, Sam, you were able to bring in a lot of private sector executives to volunteer their time. And I can tell you that some of your counterparts, well, including some here, even in the US, uh, struggle really to get industry engagement because there is that whole maybe issue about regulation versus innovation, etc. How were you able to get some of the leading private sector groups to work with you?
Malaysia's approach has been grounded in partnership and shared ownership, and a recognition that AI cannot be shaped by government alone. This strong momentum and enthusiasm surrounding AI today have generated significant interest from industry leaders in Malaysia who recognize that they have an important role to play in shaping Malaysia's AI future. And this was what enabled us to set up 7 working groups comprising senior private sector executives and experts who volunteered their time, expertise, and perspectives to contribute to the national AI agenda. We created a collaborative platform where industry voices are not treated as external stakeholders but as active partners in nation building. The enthusiasm surrounding AI drives a tremendous amount of interest in our work, and we have seen incredible support from the industry across various fronts, including these 7 working groups. The specific mechanism is leveraging that high level of interest. Industries player recognize that they have a massive role to play in the AI space, and they want to be part of that foundation that we are building. By bringing together expertise from across ecosystems, these working groups create a collaborative platform to shape practical frameworks, identify emerging priorities, and ensure that AI development remains responsible, trusted, and aligned with national objectives and reflective of a whole of nation approach. So what we did was when we brought together expertise from across the ecosystem, the working groups have shaped the practical frameworks, identify emerging priorities and risks, and ensure that Malaysia's AI development remains trusted, responsible, inclusive, and aligned with our national aspiration. There was also a strong recognition amongst industry players that decisions made today will influence the long term direction of Malaysia's AI ecosystem, talent landscape, investment climate, and competitiveness.
No, that's great. Sam, as I said, especially in the US, there is this whole issue of innovation versus regulation. What is your viewpoint, and how have you been able to balance this so well, especially for our policy leaders in the US who are listening? Give some insight. It's not either or innovation or regulation, right?
That's absolutely right. It's not either or. It's a combined situation. And National AI Office, we are also the steward of the AI Nation 2030, which is Malaysia's 5 year action plan or blueprint. And in this action plan, it covers a whole of nation AI adoption alongside AI governance. So we make it clear and transparent to everybody that Malaysia should not be left behind in areas of economic and societal benefit, but also having a very close eye on safeguards and governance of AI.
Talking about 2030, you have in your plan laid out to target the global top 10, but you also talk a little bit about that, but you also have said that you want Malaysia's own domestic measurement system. You don't want to rely on external measurement rankings, let's say of Stanford, Oxford, whatever. So why does that measurement design matter in AI governance in terms of global benchmarking? Because other countries are probably listening to you and saying, yes, we want our own benchmarking. So talk a little bit about that, Sam.
I suppose for Malaysia, the goal is to strike a balance
Mhm.
by remaining globally benchmarked and internationally connected, but also ensure that our definition of AI progress remains ground, grounded in our own national context, values, and developmental priorities. So the methodology for measuring success should be determined by Malaysia, as measurement design is a direct reflection of national priorities. While we take into account global benchmarking, it is essential that our frameworks incorporate local consideration and specific nuances that international ranking often overlook. Measurements Measurement design matters in AI governance because what you measure is what you optimize for. Relying solely on external rankings means that adopting someone else's definition of success. By designing our own system, we ensure that Malaysia's progress is judged against our unique socio-economic goals and cultural context, rather than just one size fits all global metrics. And this is particularly important for emerging economies and developing nations, where AI adoption pathways, infrastructure realities, and workforce composition and social cultural consideration may differ significantly from more advanced digital economies.
Yeah, so what you're saying is obviously for countries, they need to measure based on their value systems and based on what they are looking to measure, Sam. Uh, Talking about measurement, Sam, you have pointed out a specific enforcement dilemma. You have said that if Malaysia passes an AI Act and let's say a company were to violate it, you don't have a registered local entity to hold accountable. Talk a little bit about that. How do you actually regulate AI systems when whose makers have no legal footprint in your jurisdiction?
So obviously, this is not a novel challenge. It is a consideration across many different technologies and even extends outside the scope of technology entirely sometimes. So any legislation that we develop in Malaysia is subject to sovereign considerations. Regulating entities without a local footprint requires a strategic approach that takes into account international treaties, diplomatic relations, and a consensus driven agenda. Much like other global industries, the solution lies in cross border cooperation and ensuring our regulatory frameworks align with international norms to ensure accountability.
Right. Sam, Malaysia is part of ASEAN, which is the Association of Southeast Asian Countries, and you have been talking and pushing for a ASEAN AI safety network. Tell our listeners, what does that ASEAN AI safety network mean? What is it going to do? And what are some governance structures within ASEAN?
The ASEAN AI Safety Network is driven by the Ministry of Digital here in Malaysia, and
Mhm.
there is a dedicated task force, and this is also part of the priority economic deliverable under ASEAN. And this was actually set up via a feasibility study conducted by the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, the Malaysia chapter under My Digital Corporation, and agency under the Ministry of Digital. Importantly, the development of the network is not happening in isolation. ASEAN already has valuable institutional experiences in regional coordination and cross border cooperation, including through mechanisms such as ASEAN Coordinating Center for Animal Health and Zoonosis and broader ASEAN Economic Community AEC. These experiences offer important lessons for building AI governance architecture across ASEAN. What ASEAN has historically done well is develop common principles, shared goals, and interoperable approaches while allowing room for domestic adaptation. So therefore, to ensure that Southeast Asia's resilience in development and safe usage in AI in various sectors, the ASEAN Safety AI Safety Network is envisioned to support ASEAN member states by facilitating AI safety research, promoting safe and responsible development and adoption of AI across public and private sectors, and encouraging harmonization and interoperability of AI safety standards across the region. Once this is operational, the ASEAN AI Safety Network would serve as a central ASEAN platform for exchange of best practices and multi-stakeholder partnerships in artificial intelligence across governments, businesses, academia, and civil societies. This ASEAN AI Safety Network also aims to facilitate knowledge sharing and capacity building in AI safety and ethics, whilst fostering international collaboration with similar networks globally.
Sam, just for our listeners, is something like the EU structure being visualized? Is there a possibility that ASEAN will have its own AI Act like the EU does? And are there going to be enforcement measures, etc., within that platform? Just for our listeners to know.
No, ASEAN and European unions are quite different in
Yes.
structure. So most likely that every nation in ASEAN will have its own AI Act and AI governance, but this is then harmonized via the ASEAN Association.
Okay. So it's more knowledge sharing, standard sharing, those kinds of things that are going to be there, is what you're basically saying,
Yep.
right, Sam?
Yes.
Sam, there is research is indicating that AI could contribute almost 115 billion to Malaysia's GDP by 2030. I mean, we're talking only like in 3 years. That's an incredible amount. But obviously, along with that, and we have seen this now in the United States, there could be workforce displacement and some concentration of wealth, and because you're starting to see a lot of data centers trying to move into and have moved into Malaysia, and where some of the gains could flow to big tech rather than maybe Malaysian citizens. What is Malaysia's specific strategy to make sure that AI's economic upside is broadly distributed? Because I can tell you right now in the United States, there is a lot of conversation, pushback on data centers and things of that nature that is happening. So, want our audience to understand what is Malaysia looking at doing towards some of these things.
So this is why, Sanjay, that it's important to have a national AI agenda, and that's what we
Right.
have through the AI Nation 2030 vision, which emphasizes that AI deployment should ultimately serve citizens' upliftment, inclusive economic participation, and long term national resilience. The AI Nation strategy therefore focuses not only on attracting AI infrastructure and investment, like you mentioned, but also on building domestic capabilities through workforce upskilling, SME enablement, digital inclusion, public sector adoption, and local ecosystem development. The objective is to ensure that Malaysians across industries and communities can participate in and benefit from the AI economy rather than just remain as consumers of data center and foreign technologies. So a key part of the strategy here is to ensure that Malaysians participate not just as consumer of AI, but also creators, adopters, innovators, beneficiaries of AI-driven growth. This includes major emphasis on talent development, workforce upskilling and reskilling, SME enablement, startup, public sector transformation, and expanding AI capabilities across industries such as healthcare, agriculture, manufacturing, education, logistics, and public services. Malaysia also has a strong focus on creating stronger domestic value chains around AI. This includes encouraging local innovation, supporting made by Malaysia solutions, which actually strengthens research and ecosystem partnership and enables local companies and talent to move up the value chain rather than just remain solely on imported technologies and remain solely as consumers. At the same time, via the AI Nation 2030, government recognizes that economic growth is not just sufficient if benefits are unevenly distributed. This is why a human-centric, responsible AI principle are embedded throughout the national approach, including considerations around accessibility, trust, fairness, inclusivity, and long-term societal impact. The public sector itself plays an important role in this strategy through initiatives such as AI adoption across government services, AI literacy programs, and broader digital inclusion effort. Malaysia aims to ensure that the productivity and efficiency gains from AI translates into better public services, stronger institutional capabilities, and wider societal benefit, not just private sector or data center concentration. So ultimately, Malaysia is positioning itself that AI should not become an engine that deepens inequality or creates a narrow concentration of value. The ambition under AI Nation 2030 is to ensure that AI becomes a catalyst for broader economic participation, national competitiveness, and shared prosperity whilst balancing innovation with social responsibility and long term resilience.
Sam, for our listeners, can you just elaborate? Is public sector and government agencies in Malaysia are they using AI? And the second part is for our investors or other entrepreneurs. Talk about some of the sectors within Malaysia where the creators are actually building things because Malaysia does not just want to be a consumer; it wants to be a creator.
Yeah, so one of the early things that we did back in January last year is to make sure that the public sector has access to Gen AI tools. And right now, about 500,000 out of the 1.4 million public sector have day-to-day access to high-end generative AI tools, which means that they are able to perform policy making, save time in the repetitive administrative tasks, and this goes across many sectors of the government. To your second point, to your second question on specific areas, we have seen that investors and private players are able to go into any sector of Malaysia that have importance to the economy and also to society. When the National AI Office was set up, we focus strongly in six main sectors. These are agriculture, transportation, public sector, education, SME, and healthcare. And we have
Mhm.
seen since then, since last year till now, there have been a lot of interest by investors and also AI startups, companies, either locally or internationally, coming into these sectors, demonstrating capability and attracting more and more investment into this space.
No, that's great. Sam, one of the biggest topics right now in AI is agentic AI, AI agents. Has NIO taken a position, or is it looking at this, or what is NIO's perspective, or what is Sam's perspective on AI agents?
It's an evolution of generative AI, and from a national perspective, we do not have any specific concerns other than making sure that the end user and the implementer of AI agents must follow local laws and local norms. We have seen that agentic AI is now being used in so many different sectors that it's bringing a lot of benefit. In a Malaysia context, NIO is not a regulatory body, so we do not have any specific regulation on mandating the use or not use of agentic AI.
Sam, probably a lot of people do not know that Malaysia is one of the most culturally and religiously diverse countries in the world. It's got it's ethnically it's got Malay, Chinese, Indian, and so many other dozens of indigenous communities. AI, traditionally, large foundation systems are trained on Western data and are generally poor at representing diversity. What is the national government's office specifically doing to address bias and also representation for Malaysia's demographic mosaic?
This is precisely why Malaysia's approach under the National AI Action Plan 2030 and Malaysia's 13th Malaysia Plan places strong emphasis on building AI foundations that are more localized, inclusive, and made by Malaysia. The objective is not simply to adopt AI technologies that are developed elsewhere, but to ensure that AI systems operating in Malaysia are relevant, representative, and aligned with our societal context. So the national governance framework addresses this diversity through specific initiatives within the Malaysia's 13 plan, which is designed to ensure that AI development is made by Malaysia. And the focus is building localized AI foundations that prioritizes the representation of our unique demographic mosaic, moving beyond Western centric data. This includes strategic investments in domestic dataset curation that captures local languages, cultural nuances, and indigenous perspective, as well as the implementation of ethical guardrails that mandate bias testing against Malaysian social norms to ensure equitable outcomes for all ethnic and religious groups. Ultimately, the goal of the Malaysia's approach is to ensure that AI is deployed covers all communities fairly and responsibly, and that uh, strengthens the social cohesion rather than reinforcing existing disparities or exclusions.
No, that's great. Finally, Sam, Nio's one of Nio's early outputs was a children's AI ethics coloring book. Uh, Tell our listeners, what does starting with a children's education tell us a little bit about the philosophy of building responsible AI culture?
Governance operates at every layer of society, which is why the literacy is a core component of our governance approach. You can't effectively regulate a technology that public does not understand. By starting with children education alongside institutional design, we are ensuring that literacy scales with technology. So in Malaysia, we also have initiatives such as AI for the People, a nationwide initiative designed to demystify AI for all Malaysians. And this is fundamental because a responsible AI culture depends on a society that is empowered to use it safely, making literacy the bedrock upon which all other governance and policy efforts sit on.
That's Great. I think our listeners will be really happy to hear that. Sam, at the end, we do a lightning round of questions, just a few questions which has got yes and no answers. It kind of adds a little nice conclusion to it. So let's start. It's just fast, instinctive, and no more than one word or a sentence. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, great. Sam, the EU AI Act, is it a good model? Is it a warning or is it a cautionary tale? Pick one.
Cautionary tale.
Sam, the one country whose AI governance approach Malaysia quietly admires. Maybe
Um,
not so quietly.
yeah, not a country,
Sorry.
but we admire OECD and UNESCO.
Okay, OECD and UNESCO. Sam, agentic AI, is it ready for governance or governance is not ready for it?
Yeah, I would say governance is not ready for it.
Okay. I think I know the answer to this, but let our listeners know. Malaysia top 10 AI nations by 2030. Are you confident or just hopeful?
Confident, obviously.
I think very confident, Sam. We can see from what we have heard from Nayo, from what we've heard from you, and what we have seen the activities of Malaysia. And thank you, Sam. This has been a fantastic conversation. From you've gone from mapping oyster farms to governing AI for a nation of 33 million people, and your journey truly is a reminder that people who understand systems more deeply often come from the most unexpected places. And really, what strikes me about your approach, and I think it'll strike our listeners too, is the combination of extreme ambition, relentless pragmatism, but also keeping diversity and ethics in mind. And I think Malaysia wants and will be a top 10 AI nation. And that's not a statement a lot of countries would make, but you are also building children's coloring books about AI ethics and worrying about where to send that kind of information. And so to our listeners, AI policy leaders, entrepreneurs, Sam's journey is really a perspective on how nations can move from AI consumers to AI architects. And Malaysia's story is far from over. Sam, thank you again for joining the Regulating AI podcast. Really appreciate it. And to our listeners, if you liked it, please share this episode and please like it.
Thank you, Sanjay.
Thanks for tuning in to the Regulating AI podcast with Sanjay Puri. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to leave a comment. We'd love to hear what you thought. Share it with someone curious about the future of AI, and join us next time for more stories and insights from the leaders shaping what's ahead. Right here on the Regulating AI podcast.